the march of time. Among the unnumbered millions of Europeans who must endure a terrible winter of famine and cold are some 1.5 million Jews, all that remain from pre-war Europe's 8 million. Those Jews who have kept their lives have kept little else save the hope of escape from the scenes of their torment. But for most of them, escape from intolerance and privation is at present impossible. To help these refugees, delegates of the World Zionist Conference met in London in the late summer of 1945. They urged the British government to create a Jewish state in Palestine and remove restrictions on immigration to the Holy Land. To this end, the delegates appealed for the full moral and material support of the United Nations. For Palestine is to surviving European Jews almost unattainable. Only a few thousand Jews escaped from war-ravaged Europe in 1945 to find sanctuary in Palestine. Those who have set foot on Palestinian soil have benefited from an already smoothly functioning organization capable of handling many more refugees than immigration restrictions allow. In 1917, Lord Allenby conquered the Holy Land, and the Jews were promised a national home in Palestine by the Earl of Balfour, a policy endorsed by Woodrow Wilson and by the League of Nations, which made Palestine a British mandate. But in 1939, Great Britain was faced with war, and at Haifa in Palestine was the terminus of an oil pipeline from Iraq. Overnight, the Middle East became a vital strategic area. Through it ran the Suez Canal, Britain's lifeline to the Far East. Peace had to be maintained in the Arab states so that Great Britain would be assured of an oil supply to fuel her planes and tanks and ships in the coming battle. To calm the Arab world, London produced in 1939 a white paper which strictly limited immigration into Palestine. Many fair-minded men and women found this policy a relic of the days of appeasement, and throughout the war it was under attack from many sides.
This conference urges the British government to abrogate the policy set out in the White Paper of 1939 and to open Palestine to unrestricted Jewish immigration and resettlement.
In 1945, with war's end, the British Labour Party, committed to a liberal immigration policy in Palestine, was swept into power, and a new cabinet was formed, headed by the sincere and progressive Clement Attlee. Quickly, the London spokesman for the Arab states warned Britain's new government that the Labour Party's policy was not acceptable to the Arabs.
Every Jew that arrives in Palestine is one more brick in the structure of the proposed Zionist state, one more unit towards the Zionist majority against the Arabs, so that it is impossible for the Arabs to regard the matter only in its humanitarian aspect. The political question was finally settled by the White Paper, and any attempt to force more refugees on Palestine now, on whatever grounds it is ostensibly made, would be a breach of that settlement.
A prompt answer came from Professor Harold J. Lasky, chairman of the Labour Party and semi-official advisor to Great Britain's new government.
The Labour government must make sure that pan-Arabism, so carefully cultivated since 1939, understands decisively that the tragic remnant of European Jewry will not be sacrificed to make a holiday for Arab landlords in the Middle East.
Palestine has for centuries been the focal point of many religions, birthplace of the Christian and Hebrew faiths, and sacred to the Muslim world as well. Though Palestine is still predominantly Arab, the Jewish population increased greatly from the early 20s until 1940. Since that time, as a result of British immigration restrictions, the Jewish increase has scarcely kept pace with that of the Arabs. But those immigrants who have made Palestine their home have created within the last 20 years a beautiful and spacious metropolis, Tel Aviv, where formerly there were sand dunes and malarial swamps. Ruler of Palestine's 10,000 square miles in the name of the British Crown is Field Marshal Viscount Gort, who has won the respect of both Arab and Jew. But the Jews in Palestine are, to a large extent, self-governing. In the Jewish Agency, representing the Jewish people in the development of their national home, are centralized the administrative and executive functions of the community. The Anglo-Palestine Bank has financed much of Palestine's war-created industry, and in cooperation with the Jewish Agency has grub-staked thousands of refugees. Palestine's prosperity is reflected in Tel Aviv's own stock exchange, where any fluctuations in national stocks and bonds are watched with an eagle eye by the local brokers. Investments in hydroelectric plants alone amount to millions of dollars. The waters of the River Jordan supply the main source of power for scores of Palestine's industrial establishments, which produced $180 million worth of goods in 1944, much of it available for export. Many industries have benefited by the skill of trained craftsmen who escaped from Europe. A whole new diamond cutting industry has been built, and its future assured by agreement with the British Diamond Trust. In recent years, a modest start in shipbuilding has been made in the harbor at Tel Aviv, and the facilities which in war were devoted to the construction of minesweepers are now being used to turn out fishing boats for Palestine's fast-growing fishing fleet. On the shores of the Dead Sea, hundreds of feet below sea level, new plants extract thousands of tons of potash, bromine, and other valuable chemicals each year. To improve industrial processes and develop new products, exhaustive research is carried on by world-famous scientists like Dr. Chaim Weizmann and his sister Anna. Ensuring the continuity of Orthodox religion, a Talmud school trains future rabbis who at an early age begin to acquire the knowledge and wisdom for which they will be revered in future years. Traditionally an intellectual people, the Jews have established Hebrew University, on whose faculty are some of Europe's most famous scholars, and which is today the center of Palestine's cultural renaissance. No less important than education is the physical well-being of Palestine's children. In the last 25 years, the health of the people of Palestine has been immeasurably improved, due chiefly to the work of Jewish hospitals and laboratories. Hadassah Hospital, supported by contributions from the United States, trains scores of nurses who will go out to the pioneer settlements to aid in the development of their country. But of first importance to the national welfare is the production of food. And in agricultural schools, Jews have acquired skills which have enabled them to refute the widely held belief that they do not make good farmers. Now, over 30% of them make their living from the soil, which they have reclaimed from the swamp and desert. Most of Palestine's agricultural workers live in the cooperative settlements, which have been developed in their ancestral homeland during the past 20 years. In these settlements, where work begins before sunrise, every detail of daily life is based on the principle of cooperation. All work in these communities is divided and assigned by an elected committee, whose members must take into account the age and strength of the colonists before assigning them their daily chores. As a result of this program of training, careful planning, and hard work, production of food by Jews in Palestine has almost doubled in the last 5 years. But there are also settlements wherein the rugged individualists, who comprise 22% of the farm population, can live and flourish. Following the same cardinal rule of self-help which applies in the co-ops, the individual farmer must work his tract of land to the best of his ability, for he is expected to make the interest payments on his long-term loan at regular intervals. Constantly, the immigrants carry on their fight to increase the yield of the land. First and most pressing need has always been water, which must be dammed up during the rainy season for use in irrigating farmland during the long months of drought. Through a complex irrigation system built at a cost of many millions of dollars, water flows throughout 100,000 acres of once arid land. But though a good beginning has been made in the areas occupied by the Jews, they believe that nearly all of Palestine's 6 million acres could be restored to fertility. The search for water goes on in isolated desert camps. On land abused and eroded for centuries, teams of experts sink test wells, and on their findings will depend the future of that land, whether it is to remain a desert waste or whether, given water, it will be the site of another new and flourishing community, brought to life by thousands of settlers. Many a barren field is now being cleared in Palestine to make way for vineyards and farms and villages. Many plans are already being carried out to enlarge the reclaimed land areas so that they will be able to support the refugees all Palestine feels sure will soon arrive. To maintain in these areas Palestine's high standard of health, research stations have been established in an effort to stamp out the disease which for so many years has sapped the vitality and taken the lives of the natives. Here, the discoveries of modern medical science are made available to Jew and Arab alike. Side by side with the Jewish population, the Arabs, outnumbering them 2 to 1, live in their immemorial manner. Nomads, for the most part, noted for their readiness to fight for what they want, the Arabs have in recent years been coming into Palestine in increasing numbers. For the high wages they earn, working on the Jewish-owned farms and plantations, bring them a new and welcome prosperity. And not only has the working-class Arab profited by the presence of the Jews in Palestine, but to many an Arab property owner, wealth and pleasant living have come from the sale of his land to the immigrants. But today, the Arabs worshiping in Jerusalem, Islam's third holy city, are determined that however much they may have benefited from the presence of the Jews, Palestine must remain Arab. Now united in a League of Arab States, they are insistent that the entry of refugees into Palestine must be ended. And their threats of trouble to come are backed up by armed and trained men, ready to fight a holy war which would set the entire Near East aflame. But the Jews, whose arguments before the war for a free Palestine were strong, are sure that they now have an irresistible case. For not only have millions of men and women of Hebrew faith been tortured and murdered in Europe, but 30,000 Jews who formed the Jewish Brigade fought in the Desert Campaign and in Italy to free the world of fascism. Today, the quota under which refugees from Europe can enter Palestine is totally inadequate. But the remnants of European Jewry fervently hope that with the expected revision of British policy, all who wish will be permitted to enter Palestine, far from the scenes of their torture and degradation, to live happily and courageously as free men and women. Time marches on.